Hello and welcome to this B-Day AMA session with me. It is my birthday, June the 6th, 2022. I am so happy that you have joined me for my birthday. Everybody is here in their seats, looking forward to having their questions answered. I think what we'll do is if I'm answering your question, and if you want to pop your camera on, when I'm answering your question, that would be awesome. If you don't want to, that's fine too. It doesn't matter. So, welcome to everybody. We've got some newcomers here and some people coming back. So, we've got a lovely, lovely group here for the live today. So, and we've already done our opening ritual. So, if you're watching the replay, this is a good time just to hit pause, light your candle, and connect to the energy. So, Holly, where shall we begin with the questions?
Well, the first person that's here that asked a question is Cordelia.
Okay, Cordelia, do you want to come on camera or do you want Holly to read your question? There she is.
There.
Okay, Cordelia, what's your question?
So I'm brand new to foraging. And so I don't have the general tips, but I was wondering if you had any more in depth or, that beginner, but has heard the usual stuff.
I would say so. I think, like in all three of my books, there's a version of what I call a correspondence quest or a plant quest, or I think in the Andrine Hecate's garden, it's called something like encountering the wild pharmacoi. But I think the key kind of components of this are the same, which is to be curious and respectful, and to just find a space that feels right to you, whether it's a park or a wild area, or even like the landscaping in like like in a parking lot, just some place where there's a little bit of nature that feels right to you. And then just open yourself up to the experience. It's one of those things. I think it's having a deeper connection to Hecate's garden, to the natural world, is much like having any kind of transcendent experience. It's really difficult to articulate until you start doing it. And the key is to just go with the flow, to not fight it. If you set out, for example, and you're like, oak is something that's come to mind. So if you have an agenda and it's like, well, I want oak, I want to find an oak leaf, I'm going to do this with the oak leaf, I'm going to use it for my clay goddess or whatever, you have a big thing. If that energy is too tightly held, you can miss what wants your attention. So, it is that having that idea that you may go in with a focus, but also being open to whatever comes through. If you're so fixated on finding an oak and an oak leaf, or an acorn, it would be another example of oak, and then you miss, for example, like you as you're walking down the path, a little snake slithers across you and you don't even notice it because you're just looking for an oak tree. So I think with foraging, doing that kind of wild connection to the deeper aspects of the green world, I think the key is to just be curious and be open to the experience, and relax into it. It's a good it's fun. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be creative. It's meant to be imaginative. So like let it have some air. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And don't worry and try not to fuss about getting it right. Always be respectful of the plants. If you can use like the proper kind of clippers, um, and take as little as you need. Always take as little as you need. Um, I like to get things off the earth, so if it's a discarded leaf or something like that, and you know, look around you. I just think like I have had so many amazing experiences where I haven't even had a destination. So me and my soul sister, what we do for the seasonal shifts, her and I will go on a big adventure. And I've got to tell you, like we've been doing this for 15 years now. We leave the house. We actually gave up having more than a general destination. Like let's go in this direction. And we drive and we just end up in the most amazing places. And even when you're walking, so have your phone with you. You don't want to get lost, right? So have a phone with you if you're going to go in deep. But I mean, we went for the spring equinox. We ended up at this place, it's just a beautiful place on the ocean, about 100 miles from here. When we went, one big story I'll tell you is like, not this past autumn equinox, I think it was. We knew we wanted to go to a certain place. We wanted to look at this cave. And we got to the cave and then we just started driving and parked and then started hiking, and we ended up like in what had to be one of the most disturbing but also spiritual places I've ever been, which was a coyote graveyard.
Oh,
Coyotes are bounty here, so hunters will kill them in mass to get the bounty. And so it was really sad, but it was also very precious in that it was, this really energetic, sad space that really helped us kind of heal like some of the grief that we were carrying. It's a pandemic, we've lost loved ones. So just be open, to what comes through. Nature is beautiful, it's messy, it's bloody, it's life, it's death. Dead birds, finding a dead bird is a powerful omen. Um, Bugs. Some people collect dead bugs. I have like on my window ledge, I keep moths because we get a lot of moths that fly into the windows and end up on the deck here. So, just think, like open up to whatever's around you. And I do think studying the birds around where you live, just looking out the window at them is like, that's kind of like an entry point to going deeper, right? Getting to know those birds that are already there, what birds are around you, what birds are naturally drawn to you, and take it from there and have fun and report back.
I will. Thank you.
Love that question. I don't know, I live in a wild place. So I know it can be challenging when you're in a city, like you go to a park and you don't want to look like the oddball who's like snipping pieces off ferns. But I have to say this, take only what you need. And most people are too self absorbed to notice what you're doing anyway.
That was a great question.
It was.
Okay,
Okay,
so
next question.
our next question is from Lisa. And Lisa, I know that you said you had a doctor's appointment, but I do see you here if you wanted to come on.
That's not your mic. Is somebody not muted? What
Yeah,
is
I
going
just
on?
found them. I
Okay.
just got it. So Lisa's question is, if you could be anyone in the universe, past or present, besides Cindy Brannon, who would it be and why?
Okay, so I saw this question and I have been thinking about it. And in our guides meeting yesterday, we actually talked about it, didn't we, Holly?
Yes.
And everyone was pitching different people to me. And I was like, no, not that person, not that person. And I don't know, I was thinking about it, trying to decide if I could be anybody else a lot. I find this is like my answer to this question is no. It's no. I don't know. I don't know. Like I've been thinking, I have a long list of possible candidates. But
Who would be at the top? Just pick one.
oh, I've rejected them all. I've gone through probably 30 different. Ask Holly. I've been going through like, no, not her. No, no. A lot of
Well,
what
I guess this is wonderful then, because that means you are so very happy being you.
I am. Um, when it comes to historical figures, I don't know who I would be. Who really interests is someone who I've always been. Actually, I do have someone that if I was like I had to be somebody else, I would. Who I'm landing with now is Martha Gellhorn. Do y'all know who she is? So she
Oh,
was an amazing writer and photographer. She was a war correspondent. She was an American woman, and she had just the most amazing life. And so it's Martha Gellhorn. It's I think you spell her last name Gelhorn, Martha Gellhorn. And she had just the most amazing life. She lived through the 20th century and covered World War II, and just fascinates me. So I think I put her at my top of my list. And
there
plus,
you
she
go.
was tall, blonde, and thin. So if I was going to be somebody else, I'd want to be like the opposite of what I am now, right?
Okay.
I don't know. I've always
Very
been
good.
fascinated with her. I've read all of her biographies, and I think she had just an amazing life. I think there's part of me that is
There
that
you
kind of
go.
adventurer, like war correspondent, you know, photographing like conflict. I've always really been drawn to like women who are war correspondents. Do you remember Christiane Amanpour in the early days of CNN?
Yeah,
I always really admired. I thought that was a really fascinating thing to do,
a brave thing to do.
a brave thing to do.
Okay, so our next question is from Jessica Gendron. If she would like to come on.
Hello, Jessica. It's so lovely to
Hello.
see you.
Wonderful to see you. Happy birthday.
Thank you. What's your question?
I went with just a fun, simple one. When your day is done and everything's behind you that you had on your task list, what is your favorite beverage to just kick back with?
Okay, so this is actually an easy one because I'm kind of like, and I have there's a version of it actually in Entering Hecate's Garden in Rosemary. I can get Rosemary up here. So I called it Fierce Love Potion in the book. So it's on page 180 if you've got the paper version. So I am a devotee of aperitivo, which is like an Italian liqueur. And the brand I love the best is Aperol. And I often drink, because I don't drink much anymore. There is a brand that's made in Quebec that's called Noroi, 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 and it tastes a lot like the alcoholic Aperol. So I like an Aperol cocktail made with Aperol, Fever Tree, Mediterranean style tonic water, a little bit of orange juice, and rosemary in one form or the other. But sometimes I swap it out and I'll put a little bit of basil, just something to give it a little bite, so it's not pure sweetness. So it's a really simple cocktail. So if you don't know what Aperol is like really, really fancy orange Kool-Aid. I don't know how else to describe it. Not a lot of, I find like a lot of people don't know what Aperol is, and it's like really fancy alcoholic orange Kool-Aid.
Sounds delicious.
It is delicious and it's light and refreshing. So that one was easy.
Well, that is all the questions on the post of those who are here.
Okay. So who else who's here with us live has a question? Holly, do you have any questions?
Oh, I do, but Candace just raised her hand.
Oh, Candace raised her hand. Okay, Candace,
Yes.
come on camera if you want, or type it in the text chat, whatever's better.
If you could recommend one book for all of us to read, what would it be?
Keeping Your Keys. That would be, you mean that I haven't written? Oh, we're losing our
Yeah.
connection. Okay, that I haven't written. Oh, that's a good question. You know what? I'm going to say this, Candace, because I think this is such an amazing book, and I think it's so helpful. It's a brand new book, but I'm going to go with this.
Oh, excellent.
Do you have it, Candace?
Yes, I do.
It's an
I love it.
amazing book, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
You know, I think so many of us struggle with our emotions. We don't have the right words to describe what we're feeling, so we say we're anxious, we're stressed, when what we need is a better vocabulary for our emotions. And this gives us that vocabulary, right? So it's not like a book that you
Yeah.
sit and read once and you're done with it. It's like a reference book, right? Like you're like, what am I feeling?
Yeah.
And you can work through it. Add one of the emotions per day to your quotidia, just to understand them.
Yeah.
Right? It's such a good book. Pride, hubris. What's the difference? It's so good. So
Have you watched her special on HBO?
I haven't watched all of it yet because I want to be not collapsed
Really
on the
good.
couch after a long day. I want to have like my notebook and be ready to really do it like a course. You know what I mean? Like, and I just haven't been in that space yet. So this is that. I love that book.
Yeah.
And then if you haven't read these kind of two classics, I don't know if I have it here. Holly, you don't have your copy of that little Charlene Spretnak book right there, do you? That Lost Goddesses of Ancient Greece?
Let me see on mine.
Mine might be in the books, with the books downstairs. I don't see it right here. So it's a little book called Lost Goddesses of Ancient Greece. That's from...
I've got it.
You got it? Okay. There it is. Holly's got it. By Charlene Spretnak. She's a psychologist as well. She wrote it back in the early 70s. And this is an amazing book. So if you want like one goddess book, there's so many goddess books these days. It's got a little bit of Hekate, a little bit of, I think, Artemis. Athena's in there too, isn't she, Holly?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she is. Let's see.
It's only a few bucks on Amazon.
Yeah, I paid like $3.95 for mine.
Right? Aphrodite.
Yeah.
Here's my version of it. I think I've got an older cover than yours. So yes, that book. Okay. I love books.
Yeah.
Read
Thank
more
you.
poetry.
And happy birthday.
So before we move to Monica, there is a question in the chat from, let me scroll up a little bit here, from Vivian. And she said, if it's appropriate, how old are you?
Oh, how old am I? I was born in 1968.
You're 54.
I'm 54 years old today.
Only because I'm a year younger do I know
That's
that.
right. Holly's a year younger than me. I
And
was
now
born the day Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. Okay.
now we have, let's see. We have Monica who has her hand up for a question.
Okay, Monica. Hello, Monica.
Hi, this is my first time here and happy birthday.
Thank you and welcome. Love the background.
Thanks. Oh yeah, I was trying stuff. I was trying to read through everything. It's a lot to absorb, so I did my best.
Awesome.
But I kind of have a weird question. I'm sorry, but I've been thinking about this a lot, and it's kind of been, and I don't have anyone else to ask, so I thought maybe this is the appropriate time.
It is.
being like working with Hekate for so long, and I've just found you maybe over the past year, which I was so grateful. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, um, but I've been working with her for a really long time, and like going through the pandemic and everything. Like, do you ever feel like a little bit like you've been called upon to lead other people through their losses all the time, like sort of, and that it's just something that you have to do, but because you've been through it yourself like a lot, and then like does that feel like a calling that you have, or is it just me? That's I guess what I'm wondering. I'm sorry.
No, no, don't apologize. That's a
I'm
great
weird.
question. I'll
I'm
say
so weird.
it's not, no, you're not weird. I mean, you can call yourself weird if that works for you, but officially in Covina, this is how we think, Monica. There's nothing wrong with us. The rest of the world is weird.
Okay.
But you can, if weird works for you, that's fine. But I mean, the official Covina policy is that we're fine, they're fucked.
I like it.
um, I would say that if you are deeply connected to Hecate, you know, like that spirit of Hecate that is of the depths, right? Of the depths of the soul. You know, one of the roles that people have associated with her has always been psychopath, the soul guide, right? And, you know, the soul guide is associated with, you know, like the ferrying of souls to the afterworld. And also, it's that soul guide who helps people through difficult times, right? So I do think, and I'm not one to kind of like a pontificate on some grand theory that we're all super special or anything like that. But I will say that there is something about those of us who kind of have this deep relationship with Hecate, that we are trauma warriors. You know, in many ways, we've been through trauma ourselves and we're healing ourselves. And that because we are doing this deep work on ourselves, it creates that energy, that field that enables us to do it for other people. And I think that's why one of the most important keys, I think, in like being a Hecatean and walking like this kind of path, is that we work to really stay centered in ourselves, because one of the biggest risks is that because we do have a skill set that we can help others through their difficult periods, that we can become like enmeshed in that. So I think one of the greatest things that Hecate has offered me is the gift of creating really firm boundaries. You know, that for me, I've struggled with the savior complex, like thinking I have to help other people to be validated within myself. I struggled with that for many years. And then I finally realized that that is actually an invitation to have better boundaries, that we have no obligation. Hecate doesn't demand that we run around and help everybody, right? If we have talents, the best way to use those talents is when we do them from the center of our being and by taking good care of ourselves and really being that light in the world, that we can't run around and help everybody. That, so I don't know if that resonates with you. Does that help a little bit?
Oh, it really definitely does. It's really hard because when you feel, or like it's not even that you feel, you just know that like not helping could be a matter of somebody's like life or death. It makes it, takes it to another level. Like and it's a little bit overwhelming, like sometimes to like be that person, or that you are that person, and especially with other people who don't have like a good support system. And so if you're helping someone through something and you're the only person they've got, and you also have these like values, like, and you just like know you're the only person, and then the empathy and stuff, like I think boundaries is important. I mean, because those type of people take up the most of my time. So
Right,
so the
and they
other
will,
ones.
and you know, and it's no disrespect to them. And I will say this, one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the last few years is to know my own capacity.
And maybe those, like, do you think that's why those people are attracted to us? Like I've thought this to myself, like, is that what, do you, is, are we like projecting, and then they're like like they're finding us,
I
like
think there is something quite mystical to the whole thing.
I
You know what I mean? Like
agree.
there is something to it. Um,
Okay, I'm
you know,
sorry. I this thank you for answering my question, and I was so nervous to ask, because I really don't have never had anyone to talk to this about at all. So
yeah, and it's a
I
lot, right? And you'll grow into it, you'll get better with it. And for me, like starting to see it as an invitation to knowing yourself better, like, like to know, like, can I help this person? Do I have the ability to help this person? And it's really hard. Like, I'm not trying to diminish it. It's really hard, because, like you said, if you know you're the one person that other person may have,
mm,
and you want to help them, it's a very much like on what's going on in that situation, whether or not you help them. I will say this, like in my professional career, and even now in Covina, and all the emails and so on that I get, um, one of my personal kind of mantras is like, it is not my duty to help any one individual. Like, I am not required by some kind of spiritual law to help anybody. It is my choice, and I choose to help people in a way that doesn't harm me. We need to feel safe. Like, if helping someone is making you unsafe, feel unsafe, and don't question it. If you feel unsafe, you feel unsafe. End of discussion. Because I think another thing, there is something quite mystical to this business about how these people end up in our lives. I'll say that, but I'm not going to theorize on what that is, because for me, I like let's be applied. Let's be in the nitty gritty. Let's be in the weeds of how do you actually live with this. So boundaries sounds kind of nebulous. What is that all about? But by boundaries, I mean like asking yourself the question, like, is helping them going to harm me in some way? Do I feel unsafe? Do I have that feeling in my belly, that feeling in my heart? Am I more anxious when I'm around them? Do I neglect the things that speak to me in order to help this person? And is this arrangement optional? Like, if it is my child, my partner, someone else that is very, very important to me, like really important to me, the top 3 people in our life. If they're not on that list, then they're optional. Unless, of course, it's our job. I'm talking about in a personal circumstance,
right.
like, and knowing what that is, like, and really developing your own set of personal policies. I will help in this situation. This is how much time I will give to this situation, and no more. And what that does, like, so boundaries are so, like, what are boundaries? We all say it, but what are they? Boundaries are your personal rules. You don't have to tell other people what they are. Boundaries that are well developed, other people most of the time don't even know what they are. I have a big boundary. I do not communicate with people over Facebook Messenger. Boundary. This is a really practical boundary. So you get an automated reply from me on the Keeping Your Keys page saying, like, if you want an answer, email me. Very simple boundary. 95% of people don't actually take the 2 minutes to email me. So like, what are simple boundaries you can put in place to help your life get better? And it's okay to do it, right? It's okay to do it. If you don't feel safe, do what you need to do to feel safe, always. And then help other people. Is that, like, get practical. You know what I mean? Like, get really practical.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That does help a lot. I mean, boundaries is something I've been working on for a long time because I guess like as an empath, it's just natural to like I think start out with very little
Right.
and then have
Totally.
to build them up as you get older. And especially with now that my kids are getting older and things like that, boundaries is something I've had to work on in a lot of different relationships that I've had with like even with my mother, with like my romantic relationships, things like that.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that I need to have some for a calling, a spiritual
Right?
calling.
Like, we need to
That's
have them all,
just
like, like when we cast
practical.
the circle, right? When you think about it,
Right.
our boundaries are a personal magic circle, and we do boundaries in Propylea. So I think that starts near the moon month, that starts near the end of July into August. So boundaries is our psycho-spiritual construct for then. But there is a perpetual boundaries circle in Covina. So if you type boundaries into the search bar, you'll find all kinds of stuff on boundaries to help you out. Recorded
Thank
classes and
you.
whatnot. Okay. So thank
Thank
you for
you
that
so
question.
much. Happy birthday.
Thank you. That's a great question, isn't it? Oh, it's a great question.
Yeah.
Okay. What else you got there, Holly?
All right. So we have Veronica, who has asked, how do you think having a background in psychology has helped you with your journey with Hekate?
Well, I mean, like, is that my personal journey or my professional journey? That's my question.
Let's see. Veronica?
Both. Okay. So personally, I would say that something in my training, like having gone to graduate school and really learning research methodologies and how to be a researcher and to be critical, for personally, that when I started to feel these, like that kind of experiences I've had with Hecate, like the first ones, to go into it with like a skeptical eye, I think was really helpful. In terms of like being a researcher and understanding that. And then I would say my understanding of like how humans think and behave and feel enriches every area of my life. And professionally, for me, being able to do what I do, which is to merge like applied social psych to give you all skills like we just did with the boundaries, right? With the boundaries kind of like mini circle. It's like, what is something you can actually do? Like we love the goddess, we all love the goddess, but what are aspects of her that I can merge with what's technically known as like applied social psychology and merge it with that kind of depth psychology. So we bring in archetypes and the cards and astrology and all of that. But at the end of the day, for me, it's always like I want to leave something that people can do to feel better and not feel like there's just a lot of information, but what do I actually do to feel better?
I love that, Cindy. So I don't see any more questions, but I have a question for you.
Okay.
All right. So what is your favorite aspect of witchcraft? Is it spells? Is it working with plant botanicals? Is it astrology? I mean, there's so many components to it, but what is the one thing that you get most excited about, or that you are more like, I could just do this all the time?
Probably not macrame. Back to our recording talismans. Probably not macrame. Where
Although
are
you're
they? For
pretty
those
good
who
at it
maybe
now.
weren't there for that.
You are
It
pretty
was
good at it now.
so many macrames to get us to our final version. So this is the Corey talisman that we made. But I literally have like 6 or 7 other versions of this. But I love the crafting. I love the moment when, like intention, whatever I'm working, whether I'm teaching it or it's a personal thing, like I start, when I start with the idea, this is what I want to work on, and then I explore the idea in different ways, and then I choose how I want to express it creatively. I love the actual like when I get to that point and I'm making the thing.
Yeah, the
Like
hands-on with all the components
like
in
the
there.
roses.
Yes.
There they are. I love that because to me it's like in that moment I'm bringing like all of those things together. So I that's my favorite thing. I'm very crafty.
I thought you might say that. I was like, she's still picking crafting.
But you know what I get excited about? I'm like, oh, and then we're gonna make this, and we're gonna
Yeah.
do sovereignty, and there's a clay goddess, and in Lampadia we're doing this. We're writing letters to the goddess, and she's gonna answer us back. Like I love, but then it's like when we finally get there and we have the clay goddess and the letter to the goddess on the altar. When I do that moment when the thing is like I'm making that final thing, I live for it. Just like I only do one personal spell a year, right? And then I do that spell jar, which literally
Yeah.
takes me 2 months to get to that point. I'm gonna replace the candle on the top, but I do this, and I love the whole as a project, and then when it's done, and I love it, and I love all my things like this. Like they're my beloveds. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I love the once a year spell
Yeah,
jars.
love it, and they're
Okay.
like my friends.
Yeah. There's a bond.
There's a bond, and they have a spirit, and I love and all the different ways like you can bring that to life. Like there's so many different ways, right? What do we got here
Yeah.
what's this question?
Okay. You want me to read it?
Yeah, you read it so I
Okay.
can think about it while you read it.
So Matthew is asking, I suppose the question I'd like to ask Dr. Brannon is someone who works with multiple magical traditions, Covina, Wicca, and Western ceremonial magic. From your experience, what would you consider the reasonable limit for an individual witch to take on in their personal practice?
Oh, this is such an interesting question. Thank you for asking, Matthew. I find this, I like my first reaction is to say do as little as possible and do it well. That's kind of my first reaction. I know there is so much out there today, and we're so naturally curious and we want to discover so many different paths. And I think that can lead to I think it can lead to 3 things: overwhelm, so you get burnout and then you give up on it all. Dilution, spiritual dilution, where you're, like maybe you're doing this thing from Wicca and this thing from ceremonial magic and this thing from some other branch of paganism and this thing that we're doing in Covina. So that's like a type of spiritual dilution where you're just literally spreading your energy too thin. And the third thing is I think it can spiritual bypassing can play a huge role in this, that we're very enthusiastic about the mysteries. We want to understand the mysteries better. So we kind of jump from different school of thought to different school of thought and don't actually heal or become more empowered because all we're doing is jumping around. So I do think to do as less as possible. Like I just said about I do 1 personal spell a year. We do 4 rituals a year in Covina. So as little. Yeah, so spiritual bypassing is you go through the motions and the focus is on like transcendence. Like I want to do this ritual because I want to become one with the universe, or I want to talk to the ascended masters, or whatever it is, the angelic realms, or Hecate, whatever it is that you want to kind of really connect with, instead of like getting a good magical practice or ritual practice established, you want the juicy stuff, right? You want to be a 3-star Michelin chef, but you don't know how to cook a grilled cheese sandwich. So that's why I always say, like, quotidia, like, spend your 15, 20 minutes a day. I don't like, I mean, obviously, I have a whole package for y'all to do, but it doesn't have to be me. It's just develop a package for yourself that's a daily practice that is about connecting to the deeper world. Heroes Pure, we use a candle in Covina. Do some sort of meditation that focuses the mind and reconnects you to body and like the depths. And I do recommend a divinatory practice every day that's super simple, that is about guidance and understanding yourself better. Like I do think those are the 3 things, because there's so much to take in. It's all interesting. I say this as someone who has, like, I've been reading occult, esoteric, mythology books, not to mention everything else. Like, I first started reading these things when I was in the 6th grade. So I've been at it a long time. I do totally understand the enthusiasm in wanting to build a big knowledge base. And I also know that I've seen it in many, many people, that this becomes a form of armchair practice where they just know so much, but they do so little. And spiritual bypassing, where the focus is not on strengthening themselves, developing their character, healing from trauma. The focus is on, I want to connect to this deity. I want this, I want that. I want to access the Akashic records, whatever it is, as opposed to I here and now. I think we need to be in the here and now before we learn how to be some kind of ascended being.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Natalie,
Nasli?
what's your question? Sorry, I'm doing your job, Holly.
It's okay.
Boundaries, boundaries. I do my job, you do your job.
Nasli, are you still with us?
Hello, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
There you are.
here with lunch with the kids, so I typed my question above. That's what I was saying. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
My question is more like an astro kind of question. So considering that Saturn and the Saturn energy on the Saturday that has to do with boundaries and discipline, it's a great day to set realistic goals and for the upcoming week for ourselves or plan our week. My question was, is there another day of the week that might have a similar energy that we could tap into?
Oh, I like that. So Nasli is referring to Saturn. Saturn's day, of course, is Saturday. And Saturn, I think, just turned retrograde yesterday. Is that right? Yesterday? Okay. So Saturn, it's funny that you bring up Saturn, because I was going through like my draft articles that I've been working on once in a while in Covina. And I actually stumbled into a draft because I wanted to overhaul the Saturn lesson. So it's funny. So this is the second time Saturn has come up today for me spontaneously. Another thing you can do, Nasli, if you want to work with Saturn 9 energy, is to use the planetary hours table. Like, because every one of the sacred 7, which are the original 7 celestial bodies, has hours in every day. So there is, and Nasli, you must know this table. There's one somewhere in Covina, isn't there, Holly?
I'm
think
pretty
so.
sure there is.
And there's also an app that has the planetary hours that you can use.
Is there? Okay. You can pop that in the text chat because some people might want to look it up. So there would be that. But then I would think, like, if you kind of go through the archetypes of the days of the week. So Monday, lunar energy, intuition, the interior self, the root, the emotions. So if your boundaries are around that, you could just, you could kind of tap it into the themes of the 7 days of the week. So Tuesday would be a good day for if you need to be more assertive with your boundaries, because Tuesday is Mars's day. So that would be when Wednesday, Mercury in general is about curiosity and commerce and interactions. So a Mercury retrograde kind of energy where the boundary is like you want less communication, you want less commerce, you want, you could work with that. Thursday, Jupiter's day, Lord Jupiter, of course, is always about expansiveness, but it's also about sovereignty, right? I think in Lympadia, I put up that Jupiter's sovereignty ritual this month. So sovereignty is connected with boundaries. Who haven't we done yet? We didn't get to Venus. So, like Venus, so it's Friday, Vendredi, Venus's day. So Friday, you could frame that within boundaries for self-love, for appropriately loving other people. When we have poor boundaries and we get into codependency, great book, Codependent No More. I can't think of who the authors are, but that's what the book is called. That's what it's called, isn't it, Holly? Codependent No More? Yeah. When we get into codependence, we are not helping those other people either, right? So how to love in a healthy way, to let people actually solve their own problems and live their own lives. I mean, you could work with that for Friday. So I think you could do it any days of the week. And I really encourage you all to explore the days of the week and understand what they represent in terms of the calendar. So I think astrology can be super overwhelming, especially now with all these apps, and they're always adding more asteroids, and it's just like, what is going on? But if you learn the sacred 7, which are the days of the week, as well as being planets, then you'll really start to connect that way. And also don't forget, if you know astrology, look to where your chart, where you sit with these planets, because that's going to determine everything you do with those planets. If your Venus is in Capricorn, like understand that before you do any Friday working with Venus.
That is such a great tip. And I like the idea of looking at the theme of the day to kind of plan things out. So like, for instance, if I need to make plans for writing content for a syllabus or something like, or writing a proposal, taking advantage of Mercury Day to make plans for that would be a great idea as well.
It is, or Mercury hours, or if you're
Or the
a
Mercury
very
hours.
advanced student of Mercury, what I do is like I look at the Honeycomb Collective book I have. So the website is, what is it, honeycomb.co, is it, Holly? It's a
Yeah, let
funny
me look it
address.
Yes.
It's not .com. So honeycombcollective. Does someone have the exact
It's .co.
honeycombcollective.co?
No, honeycomb.co.
Honeycomb.
Okay. So you can order from them a custom astrology almanac planner. It's going to be custom tailored for your personal astrology and location. And I think the PDF is like what, $12?
Yeah.
So you can
Yes.
get it.
Yeah, I ordered the PDF. The PDF is about $12, and you can add, if you add like a second location or something like that, like where you were from, where you were born and where you are located or something like that. If you wanted to, I think it's like $2 more.
So, I mean, that's a really, if you're like an advanced student of astrology, then you can look at, which I often do. I think you do the same thing, Holly. Like you look at the month ahead and you're like, oh, well, Mercury is trining with Venus. And I need to really talk to my youngest son because his room is a pigsty. So maybe we can, based on our personal astrology, like, is that a good time to try to explain to him that he can do what he wants to in his own room, but when the smell is emanating throughout the house, things need to be done. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the more you get into astrology, and you can kind of do that predictive astrology to kind of help you with your everyday stuff.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so
You're
much. And
welcome.
happy
That's why
birthday
I love
again.
those honeycomb collective things, because they're personalized for right where you are, and you can print it off. And I keep a spiral bound version of it, and it's just like, not going to talk to those kids about this today, or like, I'm not going to do this thing for Covina today, or I am. So I think that's really helpful. And you don't have to pay like what hundreds of dollars like I did
Yeah.
for Solar Fire, right?
Exactly. And even if you get it bound, I think it's only like 20 or 25 if you don't want to print it yourself. So it's very reasonable.
And it's good for tracking the dreams too. Another aspect of this, is if you're getting started, learn the 7 days and then look at your dreams over the 7 days to see if the elements of the calendar days show up in your dreams. So learn what Saturn is, learn what Venus is, and then you can start to track your dreams that way too. Oh, Amber is saying she puts her Enodia. I do my dreams in my honeycomb. And then I do like any big family events and personal events, like no energy today, or like today I am unstoppable. Like, and I always, that's just like, they don't have to be big manifestos, right? You could just a few
Yeah.
words, and that way you can just track. Or like for me, because I have so many digestive issues, like I'll be like, for unknown reasons, my guts are unhappy today. And then it's like, is that something in the astrology? What's going on? Any more questions, Holly?
I do not see any more. Does anybody else have any questions that I might have missed? I'm looking back through here, or that you have just now thought of.
We could do one or two more.
I don't see any more, but I have one, and maybe somebody else will come up with one more.
Okay.
As a child, what was your favorite? Let's get into little girl Cindy.
Okay.
What was your favorite place to be that brought you the most joy?
Oh, that's so easy. So my father's mother had this old house in a teeny tiny place on the very southwestern tip of Nova Scotia. So closer to Boston than anywhere else, right? As the crow flies. And I would spend my summers there, and I effing loved it there. Like, she was too old and too doing whatever it is grandmothers do to pay any attention to me. And I could just be in the woods and on the shore. And my very favorite place, I used to call it Whale Rock when I was a kid. So I would go down. I don't know if it was like this when you think about your childhood. Like, they just used to let me roam.
Yeah.
Like,
We just ran
nobody
everywhere.
thought like she could be killed. It's the ocean. She probably shouldn't be wandering around 5 years old. But and there was this rock called Whale Rock, and I used to sit on that rock. It was at the edge of it was never in the water, even at high tide. And I would play all my games around this rock. And Willow and I actually, we go there every few years. We drive down there, and that rock is so small, Holly. When I was a kid, I thought that rock was like this huge. It was a whale rock.
Right.
And now I look at it, I'm like, that must be erosion. Like, that rock used to be like 20 feet long and 20 feet high.
Oh, that's so fun, though. It is. Everything is so, like, childhood was such a bigger adventure, and they did just let us run wild everywhere. I mean,
They did, and it was so good for me because I always did really well at school.
Mm-hmm.
But I have never been a conformist, and elementary school really requires being a conformist. So I was always in trouble at school for things. I always did something wrong, just because like my nature, it's like, I don't know, I have a hard time with rules. So I was always in trouble at school. And then when I had jobs when I was younger, I was always in trouble at them. So I thought I better get educated and get myself into a career where rules are not that important. I mean, there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of
Right.
rules, but they're not like, it's just do your job,
Yeah.
you do it well, be ethical, don't be a jerk, be productive. It's not like, wear this thing or whatever. I don't know.
Okay, so we do have two more
Okay.
questions. Real quick. Who is your favorite fictional witch? Asked Veronica.
Good question.
Yeah.
Who is my favorite fictional witch? Well, technically, Medea is a fictional witch. Technically, Circe is a fictional witch. If we adopt the position that mythology is a fiction told about something much greater than us. So technically, I know that's not really what you meant. I'm trying to be, see, nonconformist. Technically. Trying to think. Like I could say that, that series, that new series on, with Diana and the vampires and all that business.
Yeah.
But she's not my favorite because half the time, like I read the books when they came out a decade ago. Half the time when I'm watching the show or reading the books, I want to throw something at her. So I don't think that makes her a favorite. I like the Practical Magic series. I like the aunt.
Yeah.
The aunt that wears the red boots, the one that's kind of like she does her own thing. And you know how one aunt is more like, well, we must do the right thing. And the other one is more like, I'm going to do things my way. I like that one.
Yeah.
Kind of like there's so many of them.
There are.
I'd have to like look to be like, which one is my favorite? I don't know. Like this character actually isn't a witch, but she's like a psychic medium, spiritualist character. My favorite novel of all time is Isabel Allende's House of Spirits, and Clara in that is my favorite. I love Clara and her tripods, and if you haven't read The House of Spirits, I will tell you it is a deeply difficult book to read, and it is also one of the most uplifting books. It's a masterwork, isn't it? Have you read The House of Spirits?
I have.
Yeah.
It's so good.
So good. It's the only novel that I'll like every few years reread. But it is like trauma, violence. It's not practical magic. There is a lot. It's masterful. It's definitely one of the great novels of the 20th centuries. Don't you think? And I think a lot of people do it in high school and university now. Like I do think. And Isabel Allende is from Chile, so it's nice to put a woman who is Chilean on the list of great writers as opposed to all the dead white guys who are usually there. The House of Spirits. He'll change you. You will cry, you will rage, you will feel all the feelings.
The whole emotion, the whole roller coaster.
You will feel all the feelings.
Okay, so we do have just a couple more. You talk about a rosemary bush next to your door. Is that in a pot or planted in the ground?
Oh, it has to be in a pot because rosemary doesn't like the winters here because it does get below freezing. In January, we do have a few weeks below zero. So rosemary is not fond of that. So she lives in a pot.
And we have one more question.
Okay.
And that is, this is from Amber. And she says she has a question that is about creating future content. Can we get an in-depth article or lesson on property wards?
On what?
Property wards.
Oh, property wards. That's interesting. Well, we've got Propylaea coming up. So Propylaea is a title that was given to Hekate, Hermes, and many other figures who were associated with thresholds, crossroads. Propylaea actually means gate, the gate. We usually interpret that as gatekeeper, but it actually means like the gate. And we're doing boundaries, so maybe we could talk more about protection wards then, I think, because we're doing vision boards in Lympadia. Maybe we could do something then. I will say this, if you want something, Amy's got a new book.
Oh. Love Amy.
So I think you can buy it now. So let's read what people are saying about Amy's book. Blackthorn brilliantly weaves her background in executive security with her witchery while adding well-researched psychological constructs and emotional considerations into her formula for keeping us safe. Blackthorn's protection magic should be part of our libraries and our emergency preparedness kits. So someone named Cindy Brannon, who's the author of Keeping Your Keys and Entering Hecate's Garden, said that. That's why I have an arc. This is really great. Buy this. It's a little book. It's not super expensive. Get it. You'll love it. Amy's awesome. And I also have her next book already that'll be out a year from now, and y'all are going to love that too.
That's awesome. I love her.
So do I. So get this. But we'll think of something for protection words. All right, so I think that's probably enough questions.
Yep, and that was all of them.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me on my birthday. I hope you've enjoyed our coffee chat. Yep, Holly's got it there. So good. So thank you. Here's to seeing you next year for my birthday. And here's to a great summer of magic in Covina. We are going to have a lot of fun. So in this summer, we actually lighten up a little bit. I know we do a lot of deep work in Covina, but in the summer, we really focus on a more kind of solar aspect. So we do a lot of work, and we do sovereignty. Next month, we're doing owning our own story, working with bay laurel and green. In Propylea, in Lampadia, we do vision boards, and then everybody, those in Hecate's Keys, we do incantation bowls. So it's like longing and looking to the future. And then as the wheel starts to tip us to fall, we'll start with Cathonia, the descent, and start to get into that deeper work, shadow healing. And as we prepare for the big three, as we call them around here, we do have a fourth ritual. Sometimes I feel like, the Sovereign Goddesses ritual, it's like it's so much fun and it's a joyful celebration. And we don't have a lot of rules for it because it's supposed to be like solar and the opposite of all of the three lunar rituals we do. But the big three will return to us again. October 25th is when we do the Death Walking Ritual of Release. So let's enjoy this solar period and see it as an way to really renew ourselves. And for everyone who stays around, we'll be well prepared for the fall. And if you need to leave, you'll have learned some great skills and had a lot of fun making some magical things. Get your clay ready for your Sovereign Goddess. I love the clay. I definitely love the clay more than the macrame. I'll say that. You can't do anything. Like the clay is fine. However it turns out, it's good, right? Don't stress. Don't fuss. Enjoy. Okay.